Yo, how you doing guys? ZDEyE here, so I wanted to talk about Marvel's Avengers. If you guys did not know, I actually have already made my impressions video on this game since the leak has been out, like I believe 2 months ago at this point anyway, since a lot of people got to see it behind closed doors at the E3. And of course, well, leaks, it's pretty much any time of the day they will get some kind of representation of the game. Some people will be able to pretty much reveal it online publicly. So finally we've gotten a full gameplay, that's the most important part, footage of this game Marvel's Avengers. And here's my thoughts. I actually almost really liked what I saw. My only gripe, and you already read by the title, is the enemy AI. They're dumb as fuck, I gotta admit. Now, there could be some defense mechanism anyway coming from you guys. For example, well, okay, what about the difficulty? Maybe the difficulty was significantly reduced just so they can represent the gameplay and show it off. Okay, that's a fair point. I'm not gonna argue on that part. Definitely not. But as well, you have to understand, while you're looking at the gameplay right now, looking closely for yourself. There's an enemy on the very top of for example, on a truck, and he's shooting at you. He shoots you once or twice in a while. I think that's actually may be significantly more improved, of course, if you rank up the difficulty. Maybe he gets that one shot at you, but like you lose half a health. Actually, that would not really make sense. You're playing as Thor as you're watching the gameplay anyway, so that's a little bit kind of already questionable. Anyway, so basically, as we already seen the gameplay, you can already tell that everything is pretty much scripted. Very heavily scripted, mind you. The only true gameplay that we've gotten to see, that you can play as, is basically the fighting and the combat. So, there is a part when the Thor is fighting off 2 or 3 enemies at the same time. Some enemies are shooting back, but my god, the period that until they take a second shot at you is significant. Like, I mean, every chance and opportunity that you see and that they have to kill you, or at least damn shoot you or do something, they stand behind, they don't do nothing. They're only waiting until you come across, beat the shit out of them, hell, even kill them. Yes, Avengers kill, I know, please stop quoting me. Yes, I know, Avengers kill, blah blah blah, but in here, they don't kill, they annihilate them, they demolish them if not. So yeah, if there's not a word for it, I think so. Basically, they're murderers themselves anyway. Of course, there were some extra enemies and different variations, such as like their riots came out and they got like at the pointy end and got a gun. So basically, they've got a gun that's attached with a riot shield anyway, and so that's how it actually works. Questions. Now, after we've gotten an opportunity to see Thor's gameplay, we're transitioning over seamlessly, of course, scripted gameplay would expect, to Iron Man. Iron Man's, as we're watching, of course, he's just simply flying and he looks good. I mean, himself cosmetically, that's what I'm talking about. Now, flying is extremely generic. It works, if it works, that's fine, but I think it still could use a little bit of a significant boost to the gameplay front. Say, for example, if you don't want to go after them, but instead go alongside the bridge, but not on the bridge, like flying through. I think that would make it a little bit more interesting and more open variations to the gameplay anyway. Now, I do know there's a way of dodging and stuff, that he does these maneuvers and anything like that. There's a lot of explosions going on, of course. Avengers. But anyway, basically, Iron Man, when he lands on the ground and he starts to face off a lot of the enemies as well, on the ground anyway, his combat, it seems a little stiff when he's hovering, but actually, that's still subject to change. Obviously, everything what I'm talking about here and everything that you're seeing, a lot of this can be subject to change because the game's releasing in May, so there's a very long time until we'll get this game in our hands. Mixed up my wording, great. Now, of course, this also means when you are playing through the game, there's going to be extra cutscenes. You kill all the enemies. No, don't beat the shit out of them. You kill them. And then you get to actually do some extra cinematic stuff. You get to do some extra things, a little bit more move sets. And of course, since then, we are making the transition to Hulk, we get to see the gameplay of from him as well. That looked good, actually, I gotta admit. I like the way Hulk was actually maneuvering himself. I love actually the way he looks. Hulk looks the best. Oh yeah, I should probably mention this. All the characters in here got some kind of a significant even boost into how they visually look. Thor looks so much better. He looks less bulky. So goes for Captain America. He looks less bulky. And I love it. Natasha, she looked like shit before, but now she looks pretty hot. And I like that. Finally, give more realism to the gameplay because, well, Natasha considered to be hot already, obviously. Anyway, Iron Man looks actually fantastic as well. I already mentioned a little bit about him. But even though how Tony Stark himself looks like, he looks good. I really like it. Now back on track regarding Hulk. So the Hulk that we got to see the gameplay as well, basically he took care of some of the enemies. Now he is transitioning over and hovering, you know, basically movesets and going all around the damn bridge, destroying the whole thing, even though your main objective should be reserving that the bridge does not break. That's not gonna happen. Hulk is gonna take care of all this for himself and break the bridge even more. Actually, consider that. If you guys did not know, Hulk can actually take some of the environmental stuff, like from the ground. He can pull out the concrete, and you know, obviously he can use that as a melee base, and he can obliterate more enemies. But the reason is like, okay, when he pulled out the concrete on the ground actually stayed the way it was. So basically, it's not true wreckage, if that makes any sense. Like I mentioned, everything is bloody, cosmetic, everything is visualized and is scripted, of course. Now, so when Hulk is always seems like transitioning and trying to get his way, and on his path, he's pretty much obliterating everything. He's moving all the trucks and the cars in front of him. I love the way Hulk's the smash, more like a clap, and does the vibration or the wind or whatever, and he obliterates everything in front of him. Well, depends what direction that you are facing as well. Okay, this is another thing I didn't quite like. Hulk needs to, there's a point anyway, there's a cutscene. You need to press the button for you to do or to initialize something. Get rid of that. Just let it be seamless. No, I don't want any of that crap button pressing, mashing, whatever. I don't really think it's necessary at all. So anyway, as soon as after we transition over to Captain America, we get to play as him. And I gotta admit this, of all the characters that we have already seen, and we will see Natasha as well, the gameplay, Captain America's gameplay is by far the best one that we've got an opportunity of seeing, and of course, well, sort of as playing. I love the way he actually uses these shields to his full of advantage, of course. Now he has that, you know, if he loses the shield, he can use it like a, you know, he can always recall it back, and if that makes any sense. He has that kind of magnetic touch, whatever, the magnet anyway, on his left hand, I believe so. So it attracts his shield. I don't quite understand why the shield has this color variations and the highlights around it. Maybe it means something to abilities or fronts, or maybe some kind of a... So when Captain America, he's in some tough situations and such, he's pulling off and trying to, you know, get rid of all the enemies as possible in front of him, around him anyway. Like, we get to see actually him using his ultimate, I guess. And that ultimate really does... I don't get it. I don't understand it. He just did like some kind of maneuver. He bashed off the ground with his shield, and he killed everyone in front of him. What? I don't get it. Whatever. So basically, we're going to the cutscenes, seeing all the people desperately running away, civilians. Then we see Miss Marvel herself, basically the daughter of Captain Marvel, I believe her. Anyway. Whatever. She's basically going to be Miss Marvel in this game. That's what everyone predicts, and maybe even some kind of confirmation on that part because of her t-shirt. Now, after that, from another cutscene, we got to see Taskmaster himself, and Taskmaster, of course, with his evil plans, whatever, he initializes, and his truck basically of breaking down the bridge even further. So this means there's going to be more distractions. So Natasha was able to, you know, take this whole fight for herself while flying around on the Taskmaster's back, and of course he has that jetpack or whatever, and trying to get a detonator or something anyway from him. So there was a little bit of a transition to on top of the bridge. All you'll have to do is simply use your weapons and dodge out the way, perfectly timing. It's extremely scripted. What do you expect? Like, you won't really see this again and again and again. Hopefully not. And in the proper gameplay. Now, I'm not saying this now. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There's always some kind of variations to the gameplay and how you're gonna go about. Sometimes are bad, sometimes are very good, and that really does depend on how you want to view these things. Opinionated thought, of course. Personally for me, not for me. Personally for me, not for me. Great. So at this point, we get to, make a duel, 1v1, Black Widow versus the Taskmaster himself. If you guys did not know or do know who is Taskmaster, he's pretty much an expert. He's a copycat. He always learns on the spot right there of the movesets of his opponents and his enemies. He can pretty much copycat them. And of course, it means that, let's say he learned the moves from Captain America, he can make all of the same moves to different enemies. He doesn't have to limit himself just to make sure that he can only move these movesets on one enemy. He can, keep them forever. Now, at some point of the game, they acknowledge the fact that he is copycat, and he obviously is going to be learning all the moves. And so at some point, again, he has learned some moves from Natasha herself, but I don't understand how she managed to defeat him there. And okay, maybe that's just a little bit of a nitpicking thing, but also we have to consider one other thing. What the fuck is wrong with Taskmaster? I should even say, what is wrong with the whole enemy things? All the enemies in here seem so blatantly dumb. Like, for real, the boss, like, he just stands there, he puts in some kind of variations of his attacks and movements and patterns. You can see them all, obviously. You need to be bashing him into oblivion anyway. He does his own movesets and everything like that. As soon as you see an opening, you go for him. And you keep hitting him, exhaust yourself, come back. It's dumb. We've seen this done again and again and again. I don't want to see it in here as well. Like, after seeing up to this point that it's such a fast type of pace of gameplay, and no, it wasn't that fast, but this just slowed the whole thing down. It only made me dislike Natasha's gameplay more. But you know what's even worse? When Natasha used her ability, or whatever that is, an invisible cloak. What the fuck? What? Since when? I really did not like that. It was dumb, it was over exaggerated, it's too much. I know it's a part of the gameplay, you need to have some kind of different things and new things that perhaps you can go for and grind for, I guess. No, it does not work. I mean, Natasha was the least interesting one personally for me, and of course the variations of the gameplay is significantly lacking because of her, I should say the boss himself. Taskmaster, the boss, was piss poor. Now, I should mention as well, because the AI, that's the whole reason why. AI are very dumb, they're very slow, they stand there, they wait for an opportunity until you hit them. It just does not work. Anyway, well, that's the biggest gripe I've got about this game. My thoughts has been reversed, if that makes any sense. I do see it as a more positive note than I do. What I should say than I did before I made a leaked thoughts of the gameplay that I've seen. Now we finally got to see a full version of the gameplay, and I'm glad the way that they have showed it as well. But thankfully, this game's not coming out till May. I'm sure they can do a lot of significant improvements. Look at this. After 2 months, they already did so many facial improvements and how they look in the enemies. Well, enemies, they're the same actually, but the Avengers themselves anyway. So if they manage to do that, I really am hoping that they will improve the AI system as well. And I'm definitely looking for more on that part. I want to see, at least till March, significant improvements to AI and the reactions. And they need to be faster. Don't just stand there. The enemies must not stand there and wait for them to get obliterated by you. There's no challenge to it. I don't care if it's the difficulty. All the difficulty really does at this point of games is wraps up the health pool of the enemies and they deal more damage on you. What the it's a piss poor implementation of a difficulty that you can ask for. They need to be wiser and more clever. That's the more important part, personally for me. Alright then, I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, see you guys all, and have a good one.